Welcome back on Dynamod. Today I want to propose you a video about a series of video about the new Battletome of the dev, Soulblight Gravelords. I decided to create different videos, each one with a different focus, so that not everything is in one single video, but you can go to see the video that you are interested about. So I invite you to go in the description and see the playlist, so where you can find all the videos that are created about such Battletome, and you can find the one that you are interested about. And now we can begin with the focus about Avengorii Dynasty. And we can begin talking about the battle traits, the group the Nightmare Blood. The first one that we see is Monstrous Might, that make you subtract 1 from wound rolls for attacks made with melee weapons, only melee, the target friendly Avengorii Dynasty Terror Guests, Zombie Dragons, and Vampire Monsters, unless the attacking unit is a monster. So, if the attacking unit is a monster, it doesn't apply this subtract 1 to the wound for roll for the melee attacks. Otherwise, it applies, so it means all the other units. And we had to see also other two things about this that are quite interesting. The first is that Terror Guest and Dragon Zombie with the Avengorii Dynasty are battle lines. So it's important, it means that you can take these Terror Guest and Zombie Dragons as a battle line, so the base of your way to construct your army. And about the Vampire Monster requirement for the other part, it's that there are only 3 models that can gain such, at least in the Soulblight Gravelords Battletome, gain such battle trait available, that are the Laucavicos, as yet the Avengorii Dynasty in, the Vengorian Lord, and the Vampire Lord on Dragon Zombie. These are the only vampire and monsters ones, so the only ones that can gain such battle trait, because the others doesn't have, even if they have and they are big, the keyword vampire doesn't have the keyword monster. So remember about such detail, because it's quite important. And then we have Unstoppable Nightmares, that make that in the combat phase you can pick a single one, Avengorii Dynasty Terror Guest, Zombie Dragon or Vampire Monster, to unleash its monster's power. If you do so until the end of the phase, so that combat phase, you use the top row of that model damage table regardless of how many wounds it has suffered, so at its maximum power, but the same model cannot benefit from this ability more than once per battle. So each of these models that you have about Terror Guests, Zombie Dragons and Vampire Monsters can use such battle trait and be, even if completely damaged and at the end of their life, I can say, or but undead life, they can make that they can make full use of their own power. So it's quite good as option, but remember that it's only once, and each time that you choose you can take only one at a time. And then we have Cursed Abomination, that make that if a Soulblight Gravelord army with Avengorii Dynasty keyword includes any Terror Guest or Zombie Dragons, and these are keyword, so remember that Terror Guest and Zombie Dragons are battle line, and the Zombie Dragon that it's rated here can be also the Vampire Lord on Zombie Dragon. So one of those models has a cursed mutation. We can choose which model will have the cursed mutation, and we see which one we have as chooses right after this battle trait. But remember that you can choose an additional friendly Avengorii Dynasty Terror Guest or Avengorii Dynasty Zombie Dragon to have a cursed mutation for each Obscure Battalion in your army. A model cannot have more than one cursed mutation, and the army may not include duplicates of the same cursed mutation. So you have to pay attention to which model you give the cursed mutation and which one this cursed mutation it is. So pay attention, but it's quite nice. And now we go to see the cursed mutations. And the first cursed mutation that we see is Maddening Hunger, that make that once per turn, so it means yours and your opponent too, At the start of the combat phase, you can pick one enemy model with a wound characteristic of 1 that is within 3 inches of this model, so it is in close combat at the end. If you do so, that enemy model is slain, so you don't roll any dice, you slain that model, and you can heal 1 wound allocated to this model. It's really quite awesome, because it means that you kill that model without any care about everything about that model, and you heal a wound that you have. This it's really quite nice. And the second one, it's Urge of Atrocity, that make it once per battle, so only once. This model can run and still charge later in the same turn, so it means that you can move running and charge and be more sure to reach your enemy. So it's really quite intriguing, because it can be used also, I want to remember you, on Tarogast and Zombie Dragons that can be battle line. So quite nice, even if it means that you use this to make that model reach the combat. And then we have Nullblood Construct that make reroll successfully casting roll for enemy wizard within 9 inches of this model. So it means that you can really gain a lot, because the models that can have such mutation have a big base. So the 9 inch from that base, it's not a small amount of space, and it can be quite nice to make that you can make fail those wizard. So you have to be in the middle of the wizard and quite close to them, but at the same time it can be quite interesting to make those wizards, if they are based on the magic, fail quite a lot of eventually their spells, so it's quite interesting. And now we can see the common traits of the series of Twisted Paragons, and the first one that you see is an eye for an eye, that make that if any wounds or mortal wounds are allocated to this general in the combat phase, add 1 to the damage characteristic of melee weapons used by this general, including the mount. Here it's specified, so no possibility about misinterpretation about here, until the end of the phase. But you have to remember that to be able to gain such thing, it means that the general itself with this command trait has to go after that he received some wounds or mortal wounds in that combat phase. So it means that you suffer some setback before be able to eventually eradicate enemy units. So pay attention about this, because it's quite important to remember the steps that you need to apply for good such command trait. The next one is Torment Driven Throws, that make it that at the start of the combat phase, so only in the combat phase, you can roll a dice for each enemy unit within 3 inches of the general, so in close combat with the general itself. And on a 5+, that enemy unit suffer 1 mortal wound and can only attack this general in that phase after this general has already fought in that phase. So it means that you can play a lot of mind games, because it means that, for example, if those units wait to attack the general, you can use all the other units to attack them first, then attack and eventually use the general to end one of these units, and only after the general fought, those units can attack the general itself. So it's a way also to force those units to attack other units and so save the general itself, or eventually to make that you decide when the units will be able to make those attacks on the general itself. So make that you can change eventually all the other options that there are on the battlefield. Can be quite strategic, but you have to pay attention how you go to use such command trait. And the last one is Unhinged Rampage, that make you reroll charge rolls for this charm. It's quite simple but always quite effective, because it makes you reroll the charges, so it's a nice one, simply it. And then we can talk about the artifacts of power of the group Monstrous Spoils. The first one that you see is Breath of the Void move, that makes that once per battle, so only once, in your hero phase you can pick one enemy unit within 6 inches of the bearer that is visible to it and roll a dice. On a 3+, so it's not sure but anyway it's a 3+, that unit suffer d6 mortal wound. So it's a randomic one, you can even take a small amount of mortal wounds, but still you are sure to make some damage if you are able to gain a 3+. So eventually it can be a nice way to improve the damage that you give to that unit, but remember that it's in the hero phase, so you have to be yet within 6 inch of that unit that you want to target with such artifacts. So it's not sure, but to think about. And then we had the Gorva Scholar that make that once per battle at the start of the combat phase, you can see that the bearer will don Gorva Scholar. If you do so, you can reroll wound rolls of 1 for attacks made by the bearer in that phase. We had to take note about that it's once per battle, so only once per game, that it's in the combat phase. It doesn't talk about melee attacks, but it's in the combat phase. And you can reroll the once only for the bearer, not the mount, not the other option, only the bearer. So I think that it's not so great about artifacts. It's still useful, but has, I think, too many limitations. And the next one is the Furious Crown that make that once per battle again. At the start of your charge phase, you can see that the bearer will unleash the Fury of the Crown. If you do so, after the bearer makes a charge move in that phase, you can pick one enemy unit within 1 inch of the bearer and roll a number of dice equal to the charge rolls for that charge move. For each 5+, so only 5+, that enemy unit suffer 1 mortal wound. So you have to hope to roll a lot when you charge, because otherwise you'll have to suffer that you'll not have a lot of possibilities to roll such 5+. Okay, it's good because each 5+ it's a mortal wound, but it's based on a lot of lucky coincidences to be able to gain a lot of damage from such artifact. So what to say about this Avengorii Dynasty? The maximum result I think that you can gain using at least 1 or 2 of these Taruges and Soulblight Dragons that are battle lines with the Avengorii Dynasty, because you can gain a lot of interesting options available, but you have to combine also with other things. So you can create something completely new, you can really make experiments using such dynasty. So I suggest you to try. Eventually remember that the maximum that you can gain from this is combining this dynasty with the general battle traits of the Soulblight Gravelords Battletome that you can find eventually in the focus that is in the description in the playlist, where you can find the focus specific one and the other focus of the other battle lines, dynasty and legions, that are available that I described. So eventually go to see those ones. So from Dino Mode, it's everything. I invite you to put a like on this video, to subscribe to the channel, to ring the bell, and to comment this video if you are interested in something about this video or you want to suggest me some arguments for other videos. I hope to see you again. To the next time.